Good morning, good afternoon, and a happy Tuesday to you. I'm Jason Mackey alongside Colin Beasley for this week's episode, this early week's episode of the Post-Gazette Pirates Show. Thanks so much for finding us. We're presented by FanDuel. You'll hear a message from Greenwalt Roofing in the middle, and we have a lot to talk to you about today. It's the month of deadlines, as my beat partner wrote in a story today. November means, Rule 5 deadline. That's the first one. And then there's a non-tender deadline later in the week. We're going to talk about the Rule 5 deadline. That's today at 6 o'clock, who the Pirates might protect. We're also awaiting some coaching staff news. There's some hires, still some stuff TBD, but we broke some news here at PG Sports Now over the weekend on a bench coach, on a third base coach. We'll talk about those. And Jeff Passan from ESPN had a report not too long ago about the Pirates being involved in free agency. They're going to spend more money. They apparently made an offer to Josh Naylor. It sounds shocking, but it's not all that dissimilar from stuff that we've been discussing here locally either. So Colin and I are going to explain kind of the ins and outs of that. But let's start here, Colin. The Rule 5 deadline, very quick answer. Not quick answer. There's no way to quickly answer this, but who are they going to protect?
I think I've got 4 names in mind, in my opinion. 4. I think they should keep 4.
Okay.
I want them to protect Esmerlyn Valdez. I think that's the easiest one. I think that's the one that we'd all be shocked if they didn't protect after he had the breakout 2025 season. Did well in Arizona, did well, and did everything you could ask of him. I think that he's simply got too much pop for the Pirates to risk. Want them to protect Brandan Bidois, their minor league reliever of the year. He had a sub-1 ERA, had a streak of 64 consecutive batters where he did not allow a hit. That was over a month between AA and AAA. I think that he's someone who can contribute in the major leagues. Want them to protect Don Kelley. I think there's potential there. I think that he's someone that if you don't protect him, some team will pick him up, stash him in the bullpen, and keep him for a year. So I want to bank on Kelly's potential. I also want them to protect Wilber Dotel. He's someone I think that could make a potential spot starter too for the Pirates in 2026. I think he could be a not a back end reliever, a back end of the rotation starter for somebody. I think all 4 of those guys would have some value elsewhere, and I'd like to see the Pirates keep them.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, partially because I agree with it, partially because I think it'll just spur the discussion a little bit further. So going into that, I'm going to take the opposite tack. Esmerlyn Valdez has barely played above high A, Colin. He has no experience. How are you going to be able to justify a 40-man spot for this guy that you're probably not going to use in the major leagues this year?
Who would you rather have on your 40-man roster?
Yeah, I know.
Look,
this one's a hard argument because I completely agree with it.
For what it's worth, I agree with what you're saying too. I don't think that Esmerlyn he for sure shouldn't have a spot on the opening day roster.
No.
I think that he's someone late 2026 at earliest to be called up. He wasn't particularly great in AA until Connor Griffin got there, but he's also someone it's just not worth the risk. After the season he had, after what he did in the Arizona Fall League, it's simply not worth the risk that someone else scoops him up. I don't think he'd be scooped up.
Yeah.
For the reasons you mentioned. He's not particularly great defensively either. But the Pirates need all the pop they can get. I think they've developed someone and something in Esmerlyn Valdez. And I'm perfectly fine with them protecting him. And there's plenty of options for who they could possibly let go.
Yeah.
It's not like there are too many guys who you absolutely need on the back end of that 40-man roster, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. The only counter example I'll provide, a couple years ago, the Pirates had a guy named Mason Martin. It was before your time, but I was convinced, and I think Mason Martin was convinced too. I remember talking to him at Lecon Park, and it sounded like he was convinced he was going to be on the 40, and was left off it for the Rule 5 draft. And everybody was, why isn't Mason Martin being protected? Well, the reason was because he plays a position that's not often popular in the Rule 5 draft. And if you go back and look at the number of power hitting first baseman, outfielder types who get scooped up in the Rule 5, it's very small. That being said, again, I would add Valdez because they have such a dearth of power. This kid's come along nicely. I think they can fit him. I don't think it would be a chore. I like what his development looks like. He can start at AAA. Maybe he impacts the big league roster. There's enough there that intrigues me, especially what he did in the Arizona Fall League. again, I'm not arguing for him to be left off, but like, if the argument would be there, I think that's what it is, that oftentimes you can slide those guys through and save your 40-man spots. I just don't think it's worth the gamble right now.
I see what you're saying, but when you look at who you'd protect in advance, like both Ji-Hwan Bae and Sung-Jae Chang had 40-man roster spots for the entire year this year, and neither of them contributed after May. Obviously, Bae is no longer with the Pirates, but Chang's there as well. Will Robertson, recent waiver acquisition, I wouldn't lose too much sleep over letting him go. Cam Sanders, there's options there, and they've got 2 open spots as we reported this weekend. They've got 39 on the 40-man roster right now, and if you missed it, Cam Devaney is planning on signing with a team in Japan, the Hanshin Tigers, so that will make it 38 spots once that is finalized. I don't know if that'll be finalized today or later in the week, but that's something to think about with this roster.
Yep, no doubt. We would give you odds, except they don't exist for these sorts of things. They don't have Rule 5 betting odds. Maybe something to work on there to our friends at FanDuel. No, seriously. It's a little bit quiet on the baseball betting front, right? And we always have a little bit of a FanDuel presence here on this podcast. So I'm just going with some Steelers odds. It's too interesting right now. They play in Chicago this weekend. The Bears are a 3-point favorite. A little bit surprised by that. And Pitt is at Georgia Tech, and the Yellow Jackets, not so surprisingly, are a 2.5-point favorite. So you can check out more at fanduel.sportsbook.com or sportsbook.fanduel.com actually would be a better way of doing that. So, all right, there's a few other guys, Colin, and here is where I think it's a little bit more of a genuine argument. I do disagree with you some on the pitchers. For a team in the Pirates situation, like they have pitching. If nothing else, they have pitching. I don't understand why we're going to add 3 pitchers to their 40-man roster. Like they should be shooting higher than that talent-wise. I'm okay with 1. I think I'm okay with Bidois would be my pick. I think he's the most major league ready, although you've had eyes on these guys more than I have. So I'm not going to go die on that hill. But I don't like adding 3 arms to a 40-man roster where your strength organizationally is already pitching. Why are we adding 3 arms?
Again, I'll go back to the guys in the 40-man roster. I think that either of these guys have higher ceilings than, say, a Cam Sanders type or someone along those lines. I think that they're both high upside guys. Both of them have starter potential. I could see either. I agree with you that Bidois is more MLB ready than either Dotel or Kelley, but both those guys have higher ceilings. Both those guys could potentially be starters at the next level. There's someone that I think are more likely to go claimed, and I want the Pirates to at least get something for them. I don't want them to be bought out for $100,000 and then stashed. I think that they're both too valuable to lose, both top 10 prospects via Baseball America. And I agree that would lead to a lot of pitching on the 40-man roster, regardless of who you let go. I know that there are some decisions that'll be made later this week that I think some of the pitching will be thinned out a little bit, but you're right that there's free agent stuff that needs to happen. There's other signings that need to happen. What I wouldn't mind seeing is them adding, say, a Dotel or a Kelley to the 40-man roster and potentially flipping them as part of a trade this offseason. Yeah. That ensures that you can use these guys and you can get some value for them instead of risking that some team with an open spot just buys them for $100,000 of the Rule 5 draft. I think that's the best way to get value out of these guys at a bare minimum is by protecting them.
If you're going to go that way, cool. But I don't think you have to protect Dotel or Kelley. I really don't. Like if I'm an opposing team and I'm looking at these guys, and this isn't to knock them down, this is just realistic. Like Kelley has spent 1 year over here, right? Like he's barely pitched in Double-A, and all of a sudden you're going to commit a major league spot to a guy with a 3 ERA this past season. Like that seems a little aggressive for me. And I also look, there's just sort of like yin and yang to what these guys have done, right? Like Baseball America has Antwone Kelley ranked number 9th, 7th, some like very high. MLB Pipeline doesn't have him ranked at all. Like there's a disparity there. And generally those two outlets, they're pretty reflective of how the industry sees a player, and there's no consensus there. I don't know. I guess that means you just take one team and they're willing to give the guy a chance. I don't know. But Dotel, you look at like he's had a handful of outings that are really, really good, and he had a handful of outings that are really, really bad. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm willing to take that on is a major league team. Like, I think I could probably just do better. I'm going to pass. I'm not going to risk a major league roster spot on a guy that half the time was getting blown up at Double-A. I'd rather not, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too risk averse.
I see what you're saying. I will say with Baseball America and MLB Pipeline, just some of the rankings things, Baseball America does more of a end of season update than MLB Pipeline does. And both of these guys had breakout 2025 years. Kelley, both of them saw their velocity spike. Dotel added a splitter. Both of them had stronger 2025 seasons than they did in 2024. So I think that's where the MLB Pipeline disparity comes from. And I think that's why they're on at least my radar. I think that either of those guys, you could have them stashed in a bullpen and have them protected for a year. I'm not saying that this is necessarily something that a Mets or a Dodgers would make, but think about a team like, I don't know, the Athletics, someone that needs bullpen help, the Angels, a team that is really desperate for pitchers. I think that they'd be willing to make that sort of gamble and be willing to roster these guys throughout the year. I think that they have some value, and it's worth trying to get something for them instead of risking getting $100,000.
All right. Well, we will find out. That deadline again, 6:00 today. We'll have plenty of coverage at post-gazette.com, and we'll see what the Pirates do. Secondary topic here, Colin. I wanted to throw this your way. The coaching news: Kristopher, Negron. First of all, this is hilarious. And Tony Beasley are both joining the coaching staff. So on a Pirates beat where Colin Beasley and Jose Negron covered the team, they're now hiring coaches with the same last names as the beat writers. How's it feel to be the second most important Beasley around the Pirates?
Oof. I wonder if I'm that high, honestly. I don't know if there's any other Beasleys.
Is there a third Beasley?
But I don't know. I wonder if I'm that high. No, Jose and I had some fun with this. We got some texts from like Hannah Mears and from other guys in the beat. Yeah, I was like, they hired a Negron and a Beasley. The NL Central ain't ready.
Yeah,
it was from that aspect. I was very entertained by the news. But as I look at these are again two hires that Don Kelley has made that I feel pretty good about. I can't claim to have studied the Texas Rangers third base coach decisions or to see exactly what how the Mariners bench coach has functioned and exactly like that. But what I hear reputationally from these guys, I don't know if that's a word, but whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, it should be if it's not. But anyway.
Either way, these guys have good reputations. I like the Beasley hire because he's someone who has some experience. He's someone who's been the interim manager for the Rangers at points. He's been solid at third base. He's been around the Pirates organization. He's kind of got the best of both worlds where he understands what you need to do in Pittsburgh to have success while at the same time not being an in-system guy. I like what he's learned with the Rangers. I like that they went outside the system and got him. And I think that he's got some experience that is key considering a lot of the rest of the staff is young. And then with Negron, he's young. He's viewed as a future MLB manager. He's viewed as someone who has a very good reputation in this field. I really like it. I like that they've gone younger with both the bench coach and the pitching coach hires. I think that it's good that you're getting someone who's going to bring in some new ideas, someone from outside the organization, someone from more successful organizations. I think that those are things that they should have been looking for, and I think that Don Kelley got that.
Yeah, I think Donnie's acquitted himself well so far this offseason. Like, you couple those two with Bill Murphy, the pitching coach. I mean, I don't know how you look at those hires and have a critical word to say. Like, I know we're, sort of paid to take a critical look, but I really like them. I think they address weaknesses in the coaching staff. Like, I look at, you need to get O'Neill Cruz right. It's going to help to have somebody who's worked with outfielders for a long, long time, and Tony Beasley, and probably a bench coach that speaks Spanish, not just for O'Neill, but I think just relating to players and having somebody that is going to hold him accountable. They're going to, sort of involve everybody. Obviously, that's not essential across the board, but you couple that with somebody who's played a bunch of different positions. He's experienced a lot of things in this game. If you read up on Negron, I'm talking about, you have, readers probably haven't. This guy, he went to UC Davis and lost his scholarship because he was like a knucklehead and had poor grades, and then found himself it was Consumés River College, I don't know, and got drafted out of there, and basically lost a lot of stuff because he was an idiot in baseball, and then figured it out. I think there's something to be said for that here. You have young guys who are trying to figure this out themselves. Like, I want to see what this guy has. I mean, Tony Beasley had cancer in 2016, and not that that's directly relatable to kids of today, but like, dude can speak from a pretty powerful place of experience on what it takes to, survive in this game and what everybody should be grateful for. Like, they hired seemingly good, well-respected people with miles on the tires and baseball knowledge. So I don't see how that's a bad thing. I'm curious to meet them. I thought they were going to be announced last week. We still haven't gotten an announcement. It would be weird if it was this afternoon, given the Rule 5 stuff. But I don't know. At some point before opening day, hopefully they let us know about their coaching staff.
Yeah, I hope so too. And you kind of mentioned this, but I'm glad they're not just going all young guys. I'm glad they're not going all old guys. I'm glad that there's going to be a mix of experience on the staff. So
yep, no doubt.
I think it'll work. I'm excited for it.
You young whippersnappers can't take over everything. We old heads have a place, darn it. All right. So we're going to have a short message from Greenwalt Roofing, per the usual. And Jeff Passan had an interesting report, and I want to weigh into whether it really means anything for the Pirates or whether it doesn't. We'll do that when we get back, but first, the message from our sponsors with Greenwalt Roofing.
Hey, Pittsburgh. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenwalt Roofing Company. With over 20 years' experience, Greenwalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense from rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenwalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenwalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit greenwaltroofing.com today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262.
All right, welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates Show, presented by FanDuel. Jason Mackey alongside Colin Beasley on a chilly Tuesday here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So for the rest of our show, we're going to talk about the Pirates offseason a little bit. An interesting report at ESPN. There's two parts of this, in my opinion. One is they're going to allow Connor Griffin the opportunity to compete for the starting shortstop job. Colin, I don't know about you. I'm not surprised by this. That was sort of my expectation. I expected them to allow Connor Griffin to compete for the shortstop job in 2026. Maybe this is more of an explicit thing. I don't know. But why would you stop Connor Griffin from becoming your shortstop if he competes and shows he's ready? I don't get that.
Yeah, I also kind of expected them to give him that opportunity. They wouldn't say, oh, we're keeping this guy down in AAA. That's something that they wouldn't. There's no reason to announce that in November. There's no reason to announce that in spring training. There's no reason to do that at any point. So really, by saying that there's an opportunity, that's both not news, but also it is kind of news if by putting it out there, by putting it that the fact that it's out there means that there's probably some truth to it. I'd like to see him win the job out of spring training, but I do think he'd have to win the job. I do think that in order to convince them to skip AAA for him, he's got to show he can produce in spring training, but I also don't doubt that he will.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it should be all the time. Like, if you show you're ready, you should get the job. I don't care if he just graduated from high school. If he's the best player on the field, he should play. I mean, that's been the same thing for the Pirates for years. But in any case, like, there's another component. There's actually two components to this. One, Passan also talked about the Pirates spending this offseason, and I thought it was interesting that, he comped the Liriano offer, the Pirates' largest ever contract signing in free agency, $39 million, and they offered more than twice that to Josh Naylor. Interesting there. I mean, we did not know that. That is complete news. So a first baseman, they're offering nearly probably in excess of $80 million, and whether they landed the deal or not, I find it interesting / encouraging that they offered an $80 million contract. We'll assume that's not over like 30 years. I'm going to assume that's like, 4 or 5 years. And to a first baseman. Like that, you're kind of telling us some interesting stuff there. So what did you take away from the other portion of it, that they're seemingly going to be more aggressive than usual in free agency?
I'll start with the Naylor aspect of it. That's not a name I'd heard. That's not a name I'd been considering for the Pirates. Part of that was I kind of assumed he would end up re-signing with Seattle, which he did. But the other part of it is first base was the Pirates' best offensive position. That wasn't a spot that I thought they'd spend significant money in. I thought maybe they'd go and try and add a right-handed platoon guy or someone along those lines. But I definitely didn't have a large offer to Josh Naylor on my radar. I am encouraged by the fact that they're willing to take some sort of a big swing, whether it's a Naylor, whether it's a Suarez, whether it's whoever else ends up going down this path. But the fact that they're willing to spend $80 million, assuming that this was a legitimate offer, is something that is encouraging. As for the other aspect of spending widely and whether this is some sort of spending spree, spending bonanza, I don't necessarily buy that as much.
Yeah.
The reason why is just because the Pirates' payroll right now is pretty low. They have money to spend, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the payroll itself is going to go up more than it was in 2025. It just means that they have some more flexibility, is the word Ben Cherington used. They have less money on the books. So of course they can go out and try and make something bigger. That doesn't necessarily mean that anything is necessarily changing. What do you think of that aspect?
Yeah, I think it sounds good. I think it's something that, they're going to spend 30 to 40 million on payroll this winter. Don't pay attention to the fact that their current allocations are between 62 and 67 million, depending on what outlet you want to read. I mean, of course they're going to spend more, like you're talking about. Like, my impression all along was payroll would be probably 10 million positive or negative, around 90 million. And I can't imagine it would be not 10 million below, like that, given the stakes and schemes and how people are looking at them and whatever. So, I mean, my thought, my assumption, my intel was, about 95 million. If they get up to 100, I mean, I guess that's, I'm not going to knock them. That would be great. But it's not like you're looking at, I think the easy thing is to see, okay, their payroll was at 90. They're going to spend 30 to 40 million. No, they're not talking about 120 to 130 million dollar payroll for the Pirates in 2026. I wish that was what we were talking about. That would be great. I think that would really encourage a lot of people, but that's not it. Like, we're picking one part of the statement to say that you're going to spend 30 to 40 million this winter while ignoring the other part that, like, what they did, Colin, this goes back to last season. I mean, this obviously, but, for readers, listeners, viewers, they cleared out the payroll. They got rid of the payroll. So they had this opportunity to do this. This is part of Bednar, Hayes, and everything else that you're setting yourself up for this opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I'd love to see a $120, $130 million payroll and something like that. But with that flexibility, regardless of what they do with Mitch Keller, regardless of what they do with guys they keep or non-tender in arbitration on Friday, regardless, they have this money to spend. And that's why you can get linked to a guy like Josh Naylor. That's why they can say they're in on Kyle Schwarber. I don't necessarily buy that one. I think that's really just if the floor drops out and all of a sudden no one's offering him more than like a 1-year deal, which I don't think will happen. That was another thing that Jeff Passan reported, is that the Pirates were in on Schwarber.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you could spend the entirety of that money on Schwarber, and yes, that would probably have a better impact than that would probably do more for the Pirates than the Hayes and IKFs and the net money that you went out. That would probably help, but at the same time, the payroll would still probably stay around the same. So kind of a little bit of both there. I think that what they do spend will probably help the team. I do think what they spend will, you can spend that money better than they spent it last year, but it's not like there's new money coming in.
Yeah, I'm just going back and looking at the Schwarber stuff a little bit more, man. I mean, that's like, come on. Like, the Phillies want him back. You're talking about the Red Sox, the Mets, the Blue Jays. Like, I don't know if he's a fit, like straight fit with some of these teams. Like, I have some questions, but like, you've got that much of a market. Kyle Schwarber is going to say, no, man, I'm good. Going to Pittsburgh, going to the Pirates, believe in what they're doing. Like, I don't see it. I hope it's different. I feel like there's a pragmatic way of looking at this that, we're trying to do here. Like, yes, they're going to spend more on players, hopefully, and be signing a different class of free agent. To me, it's sort of what you're saying, what I'm saying, that the same problems exist. Like, you need to find the right guy and get them to come in here on a multiple year deal, buy in, and get somebody who's a leader and wants to believe in what you're doing. But like, that's not Schwarber. That's not Josh Naylor. That's not the top of the class. It's like the middle of the class, and then you overpay them. I don't know. We'll see. I have some doubts, Colin. I don't doubt that they're going to do something that's interesting It's just, relatively speaking, interesting does not equate to like Kyle Tucker or Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah. I need to see it first. They would need to actually sign one of these guys for me to fully believe it. I need to see it to believe it.
Yeah. What do you think the reaction would be like around here if they did sign Kyle Schwarber? I feel like everybody. What?
Parades in the streets.
I feel like everybody would be checking on Twitter or X and be like, is that a fake account? That's got to be fake Jeff Bassett. There's no way.
It'd be like the Luka Doncic trade with Shams. People would act.
I don't. The gifts of like, I don't know, Bob Nutting throwing money in the air or something, be like Dari Moretta. I mean, it's not going to happen, right? It's good. At some point this offseason, Colin, I swear they're going to sign a player that like makes sense for the team. It's more money than you're used to seeing the Pirates spend. I hope it's multiple years. At least I keep telling myself that. You can't go through every offseason signing people to one-year deals. Sooner or later, they're going to have to get some sort of commitment here. Please.
This is the time they have the opportunity to do it. This is the time they have the flexibility to do it. This is the time they have the reason to do it with Paul Skeens. It all lines up to them making some sort of move and taking some sort of big swing. Whether they do it, whether someone wants to come here, and whether someone's willing to buy in on it too, because that matters as well. We'll see.
Yeah. Last piece of this, and then we're going to get going for the day. But so the Naylor thing. Do you think they could actually sign a first baseman and move Horwitz somewhere else? Like, I wonder how realistic that is. Naylor wasn't because he was going to stay in Seattle, right? Like, I want to go back and look at some of the other first base options. I feel like that has sort of changed my lens on whether they would approach first base. Like, if you're offering $80+ million to Naylor, you have to offer that with the at least some thought that he might take it. I don't think I took it as seriously as maybe I should have with them signing somebody in first base. What about you? At first base, what about you?
Yeah, I think I agree. I'm looking up to see if Josh Naylor plays anywhere other than first base. No. Yeah. I mean, you have the opportunity to play someone at designated hitter if you don't bring back Andrew McCutchen in his full role. I don't think they'd spend $80 or $90 million on a full-time designated hitter, but I do think that would give you some opportunities there. Yeah. Spencer Horwitz can play some second base. He doesn't grade well defensively there, but he can. You could do it. I don't think they would. I don't think he's a strong enough defensive second baseman to feel good about putting him there, but you could do that. I think this is more I don't know how realistic I see them spending that money on Naylor. I think they probably knew that he wanted to go back to Seattle and were willing to at least put their name in the ring, but yeah, I think I don't know how I'm curious how serious that was.
Yeah.
And whether it was an offer, whether it was just interest, or what would you think about this deal, or what would you think about this and that, or I don't know. But good that they are in the conversations at least.
Yeah, they're having the conversations. I'll give them that. And we don't know what the term was. Again, it could have been $80 million over 30 years. I hope that's not the case, but could have been something funky. I don't think it is. I mean, I do think there's some sense of urgency from their place. It's not enough. Certainly, it's not defending anything. It's not, fans shouldn't go line up for season tickets because the Pirates feel some sense of urgency. Like they have to prove it before anybody's going to believe it, but we'll see. All right, that does it for us today. Thanks so much for watching, listening. These are always fun. We are here every Tuesday and Friday to break down a bunch of stuff. On Friday, we'll be back to talk a little bit about the non-tender deadline. We can recap what happens with the Rule 5 deadline. Who knows? Maybe the Pirates sign Pete Alonso in the meantime. Probably not. I wouldn't hold your breath. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can get all of this and so much more from our Post-Gazette North Shore Drive podcast and YouTube channels. For Colin Beasley, I'm Jason Mackey. We will talk to you in a couple days.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.